Is brought to you by Globus. You by Globus.
Mbote Africa and Mbote to the world at large. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, on yet another edition of your discursive, informative, and knowledge-sharing program. It is Global Insight. Our stop today is in Congo, Brazzaville. Of course, we are looking at Operation Zero Kuluna, and of course, the media narratives, where we center on a topic if French media has weaponized this operation and, of course, putting a peace under siege in the country that is preparing for presidential elections come March 2026. In global politics, powers deploy any tool to attain an objective regardless of consequences. In the Republic of Congo, French media will soft power to downplay President Denis Sassou Nguesso's government and its Operation Zero Kuluna security campaign, according to report. Ahead of presidential elections, France 24 and RFI have launched a war of the pen, framing the fight against radicals, that is Kuluna or Bébé Noir, as genocidal. But then, how true is this? To counter this media agenda setting, we therefore dissect key terms that will help us to understand the stakes involved in the media warfare in the Republic of Congo. And that is why we center on these key terms: revolution versus rebellion, radicalism, criminality versus frustration and joblessness, human rights versus state security or sovereignty, genocide versus targeted policing, protest versus rioting or looting, repression versus restoring order, among other aspects. Though the Director of Presidential Security, DGP's tactics to eliminate Bébé Noir remain complex, ground reports show Congolese largely welcome the Operation Zero Kuluna as a hopeful restoration of safety in the country. This, however, contrasts sharply with foreign media narratives and human rights portrayals. We therefore examine French-led narrative warfare in Congo-Brazzaville and strategies on how to prevent this from fueling civil disobedience in the country that could fracture national peace and also have a negative effect on the country's international standing. And it is on this note, ladies and gentlemen, that together with a panel of experts, we are going to decode what Operation Zero Kuluna is all about in the Congo Republic, and of course, the media warfare and how to actually, bring forth a more constructive analysis that will actually prevent a spiral of this agenda setting by the French-led media organs. I will join you right after the jingle. Welcome back. Time for us to uncover the panel. I will start, of course, by acknowledging the two gentlemen that we have here with us in the studio. Let's welcome Dr. Michael Dimancher, who is a researcher and also who doubles as civil society. It's a pleasure having you this day, Dr. Dimancher, as we discuss this timely topic, given that, of course, last year, should be September, you actually went to Congo, Brazzaville on a research mission that touched even on this aspect of Kuluna. So it is very timely that we discuss this.
Yeah, of course, Clarence. I'm happy to be here to talk about Congo because we actually leave the situation on the spot and we're able to talk to key actors as far as politics is concerned, as far as economy is concerned, and civil society in Congo is concerned. And I'm very happy that I'm able to talk about it because much of what we hear from the media and all of that is all about, packaging in order to serve ulterior motives for whoever cares. And I think that it's also important to hear from the people and get the people to talk. So the mission in Congo last September, of course, expert research mission was very, very important mission, which will help us to be able to dissect exactly. You even talking about the issue of the corona. You remember what they call the bebe noir? Of course, yeah. Those are still some of the spillovers of radicalization that we have, and which, of course, are being orchestrated by, the external world, the external media, and all of that. There are things that we do no longer have to accept in Africa. However, we'll talk about that.
Absolutely. Given that the world is taking another dimension, and of course, there is need to take radical decisions, especially if you have to protect the sovereignty of the state or even ensure its security. And I'm also honored to welcome, I think for the first time on this platform, under the banner of Panafrican Media, Mr. Tagier Fomekan, who is a political consultant, human rights advocate. Welcome to Global Insight those days.
Hello, Clarice. It's a pleasure to our viewers. Let me first say I'm bringing you some wonderful present. I can say this is typically African.
Absolutely.
And I wear this is to what they call SOP. I just lost my father and all this is from him. To have that position. I'm very happy of this topic and to join for this topic today because I don't think it's only for Congo. For me, it's going to be really analyzed, looking forward for the whole Africa and leaving the unipolar world to join the multipolar world with what is happening. We need to have our eyes now open, and mostly, if I just look at my angle of the human rights, I can be standing and just say human rights, don't kill like this. But we need to look deep inside this issue so that we can really find a way to help our countries to emerge, to really get out. So this topic for me is not only for Congo, the two Congos actually, because it's happening in the two. And I'm happy to have Doctor also. It's a pleasure for me to have Doctor who has been on the spot. So we can really discuss and see what we can provide by our little knowledge, to Africa to get forward.
Absolutely. And of course, this is a problem that is not just affecting Congo, Brazzaville, but other countries across the African continent. How, therefore, can we bring about constructive analysis that will help shape narratives as we continue to see that peace prevails in our respective nations? Let's go to Moscow and acknowledge the presence of Arnold Devley, international lawyer, who doubles also as a political consultant. Of course, he will be giving us the legal implications of such an operation like that of Zero Kuluna, that the leadership of the Republic of Congo, Denis Sassou Nguesso, has actually put in place, I think, in the last quarter of 2025, a move that was highly appreciated by Congolese, according to the ground reports. You're welcome, Arnold Devley.
Hello, Clarice. Always a pleasure to participate in some of those programs, which are very important to, as one of the panelists has underlined, very important to understand what is behind the official message of some of the media that you mentioned earlier. and how this operation, this psychological warfare, has been going on for a long time. And we're going to hopefully discuss not only the legal predicates behind what is essentially the monopoly of violence from the state in the classical sense, and the state's duty to preserve order and constitutional prerogative to elect politicians into office, but also how what Congo Brazzaville is going through right now has been witnessed in different and various parts of the world in the context which not unlike what we can surmise is going on in Congo Brazzaville, aims to destabilize the existing authorities by providing the public, the uninformed public, with a certain narrative which aims at withdrawing legitimacy to the choice of the Congolese people. So looking forward to it, and thank you for your invitation.
And thank you also for accepting to be a guest this day. Like you've highlighted, of course, we are today facing a narrative warfare. And of course, it's happening in Congo Brazzaville. How is probably the reports coming from France 24, RFI, and even other human rights groups actually changing the narratives and the minds of Congolese, threatening also the leadership of that country? Without much ado, we are going to contextualize the topic with you, Dr. Dimancho. I always want us to have a holistic understanding of probably a topic, and today we are looking at Operation Zero Kuluna, or Bébé Noir, which is a problem of causing security in Congo Brazzaville, and probably why it is imperative for such a radical stance to actually ensure that Congolese are in peace.
Yes, there's one thing to understand that each and every country has problems. There is no country without problems. But now the approach to solving the problems sometimes help deteriorate the problem than solve the problems. And one of the things that we have had in Africa in general, and Congo in particular, what I realize is that the young boys who feel that they have been marginalized and that they are jobless, instead of looking for a constructive way in order to build the country and build the country's resources, join the government in solving some of the economic issues that beset of the country, they rather are being, tailored by, the handiworks of people who are in the dark. And people in the dark are being, they use the media in order to help these people, in order to radicalize things, or how to get things off hand. Because you must understand that in every state, there are always people who want their own share of the cake. And even if it is not wholly gotten, they always want their own share of the cake. And there is always an approach which they use. And one of the approaches that they use is to use the youths. And the youths are always the target. Now, from my study in Congo Brazzaville, I realized that the youth is really in target. Remember that there is when I carried out my research, and there is a question, and I asked one of the political figures, and his answer to me gives me reason to actually say that that's one thing that happened in the whole of Africa. He told me that in Congo Brazzaville, nobody wants to go to the field to work. Nobody wants to go to the farm to work. Nobody wants to go to the industry to work. Everybody wants the office work. And because everybody wants the office work, you know that the government cannot provide all the jobs for the office work.
Absolutely.
And because of that, now there is this, cry that there is joblessness and all of that. Meanwhile, of course, there are jobs and youth can actually go to the field and work. But because of this, now what they do now is that they get into contact with international organizations. And one of the things that I always realize is that the role that, NGOs and civil societies, they play in this, not only talking about the media, yes. The NGOs and civil society, they play a huge role in this issue. And what do? They come in the verge of trying to help the youth or maybe foundations or whatsoever. Meanwhile, their ulterior motive is to actually spur the spirit in the youth to rise against the government. Yeah. So you realize that these skirmishes from the Weaponise, this coming from the Kuluna, and the government respond to it, which of course is supposed to be the response of each and every government. Let me tell you, yesterday I received a young guy from Cameroon who came from Dubai. And he came from Dubai, he was repatriated. And I was asking him what happened. He said, it is a government scheme to actually just, to help clean the state of those who are actually causing havoc to the government in Dubai. So they just come and bother you people, and just to let you know that it's not just Africa. Even when the government cracks down, it is for the good of the country. So most often, because sometimes we support and say the government is still dictatorial, this autocratic government and all of those. But it's because we have not understood the headache that the government goes through. Now, when you leave all of these things peel, and what happened? You begin to have secessionist group, extremists, terrorist groups that are actually, that don't disturb only the government, but they disturb the people in the local community. So the issue of the Kuluna in Congo Brazzaville is not an issue that is strange. When you go to each and every country, you find that the issue is there. But when you look at the root cause, you realize that it is for selfish, most of it is for selfish motive.
Being used as a political tool.
Exactly. Because when you find some of these people who spearhead this, they are people that have not even had anything to talk about when it comes to the country. Because when we were looking at the main figure of this, like Frederick Chume, when you look at him, he's a guy who has been actually going and trying to, he wants everything to himself. There's a guy who is so a little bit, I would call him selfish, because he goes on and up. You realize that he only resurfaced again in 2016, 2017. They came up, and that was not all. They came on in terms of negotiation, but because his desires, his aim was not met. Now he comes up again this time around to say that he's going in for. We need to be very careful about those kind of, and that is what is happening with Africa, and that is why I keep condemning even our politicians. Our politicians have a very big role to play. They need to love the country first.
Absolutely. Loving the country first and working for the people instead of inciting or leading to radicalization. Because, Mr. Tagier, when we look at Kuluna today in Congo Brazzaville, we are looking at a gang group or probably radical youths, and it's always good to probably ensure that there is an understanding, because narratives from the Western media showing some sort of that there is crackdown or repression from the government on the youths, and I would love to have your own viewpoint on probably the contextual aspect of our topic today, Operation Zero Kuluna, and how it has actually or probably gradually spiraling into some sort of war of the pen in the Congo, championed by the French-led media.
Right. As we're saying, for me, it's good to look at the problem deeply. For me, whether you call them the Kulunas or the Weaponise, or you have in Cameroon, you call them microbe, or all that. As the doctor was just saying, all the countries have their own problems. But one thing is that we have to look at it deep. You see, from if you look at the world problems that we have now, you'll see that West built itself and all its reputation around lies. I'm going to say it in this way. Around, it's like when you have Machiavelli said 500 years ago, he said, and many use that without saying it, he said, it's better to look smart than to be smart, for example. You see? And the West has been working from propaganda, and propaganda through the media. Yeah. We had to see this war in Ukraine and Russia to see so much of the weaknesses that we never saw. To show that the media was really putting them up. And now America really is just facing that again. Yeah. That they give what they are, but they are not, actually. And, it goes all in the case of Africa from the this Berlin meeting from November 84 to February 85, where they took the case of Africa. That's how we are going to take them and all. They build on that same trend. thinking about the media and all. Africa was never like that. And now the problem's coming. We need to get deep in that because 60% of mostly the Francophone Africa is made of youth. And when you look at this Kuluna, these are guys at the age to produce in the country. Guys 20, 25 and all. And the problems that we have are real. These are guys ready to cut the hands of taxi driver, cut the hands of women, and all, put them to death and all. Some take drugs, of course. But if you look at it deeply, it's a problem of deprivation. The problem of deprivation. We are very happy in Africa. We hear Africa is growing in population. The statistics say in the Francophone Africa, population double every 15 years. Every 15 years. Can you imagine? If I take the case of Cameroon, that I know very well because I'm from Cameroon, you are talking of Cameroon 60 million in 15 years time. It's good. It's very beautiful to say we have 60 million people. What is it prepared for these people to do? What have we put as logistic? Political, social, and economical employment, especially to do when they are out. So if we don't answer to these questions quickly, and this is urgent, we are going to have that same kind of issue coming, and it's just going to worsen. I said this from 5 years ago. I think that we were on Africa Media, another channel, and I said what we are having at that time is nothing. It's going to get worse. Things are just going to get worse. In Cameroon, we have a case of what we call the Ambazonians. Ambazonians is not thief, it's not Ambazonian anymore. Thieves now have joined.
And of course, that actually relates to this
to the
radicalism
Kulunas.
that we are talking about.
Thieves have joined. You see, and now the motive now is all lost now. You don't know exactly what they want. At the beginning, the Kulunas, you have that case of the pastor, I think Pastor Tumi. That Tumi is funny because in Cameroon also, that Tumis are always going to be men of God because you have Papa Tumi.
And of course, he is actually having the identity of a pastor.
And his case really is very touching because, some people will say when you are, as a man of God, you shouldn't be getting involved in violence. But the point is that in his case, you don't know exactly what he wants actually at the end. And many join his way, his militia, because he has created a militia that the youth join. But basically, I say the problem is a problem of deprivation. These youth that constitute 50 to 60% of our country, what are we preparing? Just like in Congo, you have large pieces of land. But the problem that these youth, they are all looking for office work, just like Doctor said. If not in Cameroon, for the case that I know very well, some years ago, some 30 years ago, the government created what was called Operation Yabasi Bafa. And that was an agricultural project where employment was provided to youth. Everything was put into place. They have a little home and all, they bring the family and you can produce, and the country and the state put at your disposal all the means so that you can come out in 5 years, 10 years and have some capital where to, where to rejoin. But production was put on the way. These are this kind of mighty projects we have to multiply in Africa and educate, because actually the education that the Frenchman specially brought is an office education.
Absolutely.
To think that you have succeeded, you must be in an office. And that you have all the titles around and all, or when he goes to school, when he's studying, his point is so well one day to sit in that office, have his style like this, my own, and get out and get a salary. We need to change that mentality. So I think there's a urgent need of education and changing even the principle of education, because the education that was set on after that Berlin conference was an education to make out keeping being used and exploited by West.
Of course, will come subsequently to this education, and it's that education that makes us to understand how soft power actually happens and a place of media. Today we are talking about using the term like genocide to define the security operations taken by the government of Congo Brazzaville. Let's have it from you, Arnold Dovely, because if we put all stakeholders together, the government's position, we're putting the place of the human rights and, of course, the population, and very importantly, what this means to the probably security and sovereignty of a nation like Congo, Brazzaville. So what legal analysis, holistic analysis can we present towards the Operation Zero Kuluna that was launched starting in the last quarter of 2025 to ensure that it doesn't actually spiral, especially as the country gets towards another remarkable election?
Well, I would just say as a preliminary remark that I've been watching some of the reporting bearing on arrest of some of those young people. Most of them having been caught in red-handed in attacking violently, grossly violating the physical integrity of civilian, innocent people. I saw a reportage bearing on a pregnant woman being physically assaulted. And as it were, and despite some of what those French, so when we say French media, also let's be clear, those are state-funded media. They are not private media, to be sure. France 24, RFI, those are state-funded from A to Z. So they are the mouthpiece of the French government and the interest behind it. So I would say first and foremost, it would behoove Congo Brazzaville, but not only Congo Brazzaville, other countries who are in the crosshair of former colonial powers, to essentially shut down the offices of those media, quote unquote media. And I would extend such policies to foreign NGOs, because as you mentioned earlier, they are likely to basically infiltrate the youth. You mentioned the youth, the university crowd, and women. Those are the targets. In every color revolution, those are the targeted population categories. But technically and legally speaking, again, the state acts in the interest of its constituents. And one of the responsibilities that the state has is to guarantee the right to life, which is one of the fundamental rights, along with freedom of speech and freedom to assemble, which, if the state does not guarantee it, then the state has no legitimacy. To the extent the state has been attempting to corral some of those militia groups, they are thus far using the penal code, the criminal code. The individuals that were arrested, for instance, are facing charges of assault, aggravated assault, aggravated by the circumstances that they were acting against a vulnerable person and as a group, essentially. So when we hear elements of language bearing on the word genocide, which is extremely connoted, we are completely on a different planet here. I mean, the very use of this legal qualification discredits completely, the media that purports to use it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, legally speaking, and to the extent this phenomena has been going on for quite some time and has challenged the DSP, it bears thinking that we have an election coming in a couple of months, and that it is not a coincidence that those groups are being activated. The question, and I guess I would defer to the security services and intelligence services, bears on who's financing them, who's behind them. And, it takes a lot of work trying to be on the ground and get information, informers to provide, the necessary understanding as to who is really behind this militia phenomena. But so far, the state hasn't resorted to calling for the state of emergency, which would probably play into the hands of the enemy of Congo Brazzaville, because then they could say, well, in that condition, it bears noting or concluding that no elections can take place. So it's a very fine line that the government is walking. that has to resort to existing legal predicates without going overboard. But if the situation was to go overboard and deteriorate further, there are legal precedents existing in countries like the Philippines, and owing to the drug trafficking, out of control drug trafficking, and we all know the power yielded by drug cartels. They can intimidate politicians, they can buy politicians, they can have their own paramilitary forces, and they can essentially install terror among the population. President Duterte in the Philippines understood the nature and the scope of the problem and acted accordingly. And you will remember that the West essentially used the same tropes, trying to demonize his action, and even going as far as using the ICC to issue an international arrest warrant. Duterte is actually in the Netherlands right now. Excuse me. Waiting to be put on trial, essentially, for crimes against humanity or crimes against humanity at this point. But it's something that we need to understand. It all takes place in a larger context. Let's look also at the situation in Brazil, going back to 2015, 2016. Let's recall that Brazil had a couple of international events which were bound to attract hundreds of thousands of tourists. What tourist means revenues for the country, and it's all predicated and conditioned by the image that the country projects to the world. So in that sense, President Bolsonaro also used some legislation. He actually acted on Article 144 of the 1988 Federal Constitution. This article basically calls on the government to intervene by all means necessary to punish and to perpetuate and pursue authors of crimes against the political and social orders, goods or services, and the interest of the Brazil federal government. So there is 1,001 ways to justify that. I would also quote, and I will yield the floor to my fellow panelists, to the situation in Salvador. The situation was so bad in 2022 that Salvador Bukele appropriately called for the state of emergency and suspended the constitutional guaranteed rights to preserve the country. So in so doing, some people might criticize the fact that the rights to freedom to assemble, right to defense for incriminated person, the right to be notified of the violations and the rights pertinent to those violations were all suspended. But we were dealing with mass gang violence. And, what do you want to do? It's a very fine act between the doctrine of human rights, balancing act between the doctrine of human rights and preserving the state. If the state dissolves, then it's chaos and anarchy. So in that sense, I would commend the authorities in Congo would thus far have refrained from even suspending the constitutional order. But at the end of the day, there's an election coming up, and obviously some substantive issues have to be addressed. One of the panelists mentioned the lack of investment, maybe in education, lack of investment in private sector development jobs. In France, for instance, we more and more are heading toward a situation where unless you work in the public sector, in this Leviathan-like state, the French state, obese and completely inefficient, you are likely to encounter difficulties in the private sector, which is completely drained and buried alive in taxes and other levies. So when people try to get at least the attention of the government to this issue, we saw during the Yellow Vest movement that the French state went above the call of maintaining order in going after the protesters, the peaceful protesters, and they were not armed, and all they were doing was to basically peacefully walk with a yellow vest on them. Well, the CRS were unleashed, and we have records of gouged eyes and amputated hands using RBD grenade and military vehicle and techniques such as nassing, which basically involves mass arrest of people who happen to be snatched and stuck in a particular small street or a dead end. The dragnet, is actually what the law enforcement are using. And many of them have been condemned, sentenced, without any modicum of evidence. I assisted to some of those hearings, and it was kind of like industrial Taylor-like chain, rendering of justice, which has nothing to do with something remotely or approximately resembling a rule of law governed state. So France is very well advised to look within its own borders in that sense, and but unfortunately, that's unlikely to happen because the powers and the interests who have captured the French state, are trying to use this human rights doctrine to justify very often foreign intervention. So what I would say right now is that it's a very complicated situation. It cannot be resolved in a day. There are very deeply rooted causes which must be addressed. But in order to be addressed, we need to have a legitimate government, which is being given a mandate by the voters. And this can only take place in appeased order, appeased society. And right now, as long as those militia are running amok, this is something that is not acceptable, and the state cannot afford to look weak, no matter what happens.
It's actually a complex one. I will stay with you, Arnold Dowley. Let's look at probably how framing this operation as maybe a genocide fits into the broader geopolitical pattern, which you actually mentioned. Of course, this is the place of external powers and how the information war is actually maybe reshaping narratives that actually puts Congo's sovereignty at a crossroads, especially in a multi-polar world. You quite mentioned the fact that Mali just suspended Jeune Afrique, and we know also that the Sahel states have been very instrumental having an independent media voice to actually report on stakes involving the region. Let's actually take the case of the Congo Republic to understand the broader context of maybe a geopolitical context of such an appellation of probably fight against radicalism as genocide, and how to avert this from spiraling.
Well, you're right to mention that the situation we are evoking tonight has to be taken into a wider context, which sees African nation trying to once and for all check out the yoke of neo-colonialism. Let's be honest. This is what it's all about. And all those rhetorical operations being deployed by Western media aims at constantly trying to demean African in their ensemble, but also through their elected leaders. No leaders is perfect, don't get me wrong, but until further notice, the people decide, not outsiders. And right now we have something called the IOS, which is seemingly doing pretty well despite all the pressures. And interestingly enough, some of those pressures are not being reported by those very same media who are quick to brandy around terms like genocide. When it comes down to a coup attempt, trying to revert the situation to pre-2021. And the ability of the AES construct to chart its own course, to clear and consolidate and renegotiate all the contracts that were up to very recently completely one-sided, thereby depriving the populations from their own sovereign wealth needed to invest into education, to invest into the private sectors. This will define most likely the course of history on the entire continent for decades to come. There cannot be any going back. Going back is not an option. And the longer AES is proving to be resilient and sustainable, the more countries around it are going to feel the pull. And this is basically why, more than ever before, those countries that might be perceived by Western intelligence services are being on the brink or toying with the idea of joining the AES are targeted using the same old tropes. But, you talk about genocide. Look at what happened in the Sichuan province in China, Western China, with the so-called genocide of the Uyghur. Let's recall that the Uyghur were, used to destabilize Syria. That is the reason why China took a keen interest in helping the government of Bashar al-Assad in its fighting of terrorism, because its own nationals were part of this international coalition of crime paid by Qatar, Turkey, and trained by Western powers. For 14 years, Syria valiantly resisted against those hordes. But we had people all throughout that period, like Raphael Glucksmann, who we have reason to believe is a CIA asset operating in the very heart of a French political system, basically engaging the Chinese ambassador in Paris on this particular issue over and over again, when we know for a fact that this genocide accusations have no merits whatsoever. So, you have to understand how the West functions in that sense. They always use the same playbook. And the president of Congo Brazzaville is faced with, the same situation. For whatever reason, they've decided he has to go. He's showing resiliency, so they are upping the temperature by deploying those militia, terrorizing the population. We're seeing it right now in Iran. It's the same. It starts with the legitimate grievances bearing on the purchasing power and the devaluation of the Iranian rial by 40%. And next thing you know, you've got outsiders, Mossad sponsored, providing them with weapons that were stored for years in caches, along with Starlink devices, and whipping the population into thinking they can go above and beyond the initial demand and use violence against the state. This can never be accepted. So again, this is not a single situation. This is not an isolated event. It operates within a complex interlocking of geopolitical realignment. And it is a very sensitive period right now for Congo Brazzaville, which will require restraint, but also firmness in making sure the situation does not spiral out of control.
Okay, it is to ensure that the country curtails or does not find itself in a state of quagmire or probably a civil disobedience. Coming back to you, Dr. Dimanche, we are still going to probably go back to the realities on the ground, which you actually noticed in Congo Republic. When we listen to the global analysis, especially putting the geopolitical stakes, we will notice that Congo Brazzaville remains one of those nations with, I don't know if I should categorically say, with a balanced foreign policy. We see China, and of course it was thanks to China that we had the connection of the word linking Pointe-Noire and Congo Brazzaville. We see actually France still in Congo, and of course there's the Russian Federation also in Congo as international partners to the current president. But then when you look at that precious goal, which probably should be the reason behind the gang group like maybe Kuluna, we're talking about the control of the oil of the nation, which is actually what should benefit the population. Let's see how this is maybe a fight for control by the West, like has been mentioned earlier, using the youths who are ignorant about the stakes on the ground to probably radicalize citizens thinking that they are pressuring the government, that actually 70 to 80% of the total oil revenue is controlled by foreign companies. Here we are talking about Shell, which is of course a French company, among others.
Yes, one of the things I should first of all say, Clarice, is that conflicts, militarization of the youths, and radicalization serve the politicians and not the youths. This is one thing we should know. Even though the youths are usually used in these, let them understand that all this conflict at the end of it all usually serve the higher power, which are the politicians. We have seen that happen in Africa. It happened in Ivory Coast, happened in almost all Africa, when the youths are actually spurred to come out and riot and join militia groups and all of those. At the end of it all, they are the politicians that benefit. And that is why at one moment, I have a feeling that sometimes we cure the symptoms and not the cause of what is happening in Africa as a whole. It is very important to always look at the cause of all of these. Because you know that even the politicians in Congo Brazzaville, they know the storm, where the storm has been stirred, the teacup in the teacup. They know. Yeah. I bet since it is serving their interests, nobody, cares about it. The number of youths that die, and as I've always often said, no drop of blood of an individual is worth a political ambition of any politician.
And that's why some viewpoints, people always say that bad peace is better than good war.
Exactly. Even the case in court, they say a bad negotiation out of court is better than a good judgment in court. It is important to know that.
Sure.
Now, you are coming back to your question. You see that the world is being divided, and petrol, which is a precious gold that is supposed to enrich countries, is a bone of contention in many countries. When you find even the partners that we are talking about, in diplomacy, it is permanent interest. Absolutely. Who cares how many people die in trying to get my interest? This is what is happening in this world. Even when we talk about unipolar world, it is just sing-song, even though it doesn't exist today. Before the program, we are talking about it, that now, is there any international norms any longer? There is none. There is none. I even think that, and that's why I'm saying that even the UN needs to be dissolved. The African Union needs to be dissolved. What problem has the UN solved in Africa? What problem is the African Union solving? This is what we are talking about, that you find all of these partners that come. You mentioned Russia, you mentioned China, you mentioned France, which is an all-time partner of Congo Brazzaville. They are coming for the precious gold. What happened to the local Congolese is not their business. And that is why when you even talk about the weaponization or operation, of radicalization of the youth, it also stems from this partnership. Because when the partners come as they are flogging into Congo, not because they really want gain kind of relationship, they are looking for who should have the highest amount of gain. And to have who is supposed to have the highest amount of gain, you know that the best way to either gain or to carry out, to take what is yours in a country in Africa is to create disorder. So one of the things that they do through all of these militia groups is that they want to create disorder, because when there is disorder, they easily now get in to be able to take what is theirs. And therefore, I keep on blaming the youth who allow themselves to be used. Because at the final analysis, we go on counting our debts. We don't go counting the projects. We don't go counting the economic gains and all of those. Because if you ask now in the Republic of Congo, just as we were asked in other countries, that what is worth the money that is gotten from oil that is in Congo, or that the revenue that gotten from oil. I want to come back to Cameroon. Have you ever heard the money from Sonara defended in the National Assembly as in the budget? It is money, it's a black money. Money that is used, I mean, the way that citizens don't even understand. And it is like that because these partners, they come, they negotiate their deals behind the scene. I was talking with somebody, and I even interviewed somebody in Congo Brazzaville who said there's a French company who came, and then they met him, and one thing which was happening that they wanted to strike a deal on oil. And he was, I mean, you see,
opposition.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And they said they are going to give him this percentage if he strikes the deal. You see to what extent our politicians go. Some people now decide to strike the deal to get, I mean, they bribe you a contract of maybe 100 billion. They say they'll give you 5 billion. Put in your pocket and sign that thing for us to get going. So you realize that this issue of oil has always, look at every country that has oil in Africa. There is problem. There is problem. I mean, look at it all. Nigeria, there are problems. Libya, why was Gaddafi the throne? Because of oil.
And that is why the goal is for us to probably educate these young people as to actually understanding the stakes of a country.
Of the country.
And not to resort
because if these youth could see ahead, they will understand that at the end of it all, this radicalization that they come and what they come and give them, it is just something that they are using to pay for their debt and their coffers. This is what they have to understand. That at the final analysis, they are the politicians who come back to negotiate, and then share the booty. When people were killed in Ivory Coast between the tussle between Gbagbo and Ouattara, who came back afterward and reconciled? Were they going to bring back those who were killed during that period?
And that's why
look at the civil war. We are talking about Congo Brazzaville. Look at the civil war in the 1990s. Do you know how many people died? We passed at the place where they said there's a bomb that exploded and the whole place was shattered. Will you bring back those youth who were killed? Do you know that the politicians soon came back in a negotiation, and then they came into a truce and everybody took his own, and it appears as if nothing happened? But lives have been lost. I do not know why the youth in Africa do not learn from signs of the time. It is really a problem, and we need to preach this gospel. Because one of the things, the media can radicalize you. The media can say whatever they say. And because the media is doing a lot, to fine-tune, to tell the minds of Africans today, because we love watching it, and we love watching the lies that they tell there. We don't love watching the lies. But when you go to the field and you have to interview the people that will matter, you understand that we are the cause of our problems. And the youth are at the head of all of these problems because they are of the youthful age, the energy, and they are the ones they use to destroy.
And they know little or nothing about
what is happening
of
because
the
they do not care to ask what.
All is that the government is not doing well.
I listen to what they say. I saw on France 24 that. I saw on RFI that. I saw on that. This is what they do. They do not ask questions about what is around the media environment. It is what they have over there. And they forget to know that all of these medias have never shown any good places about Africa. They always show the gloomy places. They have never shown beautiful houses, beautiful places, beautiful construction, beautiful touristic sites. They always show a gloomy part of Africa because we want us to remain in perpetual desire and perpetual want. And that is what we fall in for. And that is why they may make them to understand they have to go through the desert to the promised land, which is Europe. Which, of course, is not the promised land.
So it has to do with the mindset.
That is the mindset that we have. And they don't know that what they have in Europe is what they have taken from here now. They go to treat over there. The packaging and everything is what they get from here. That's what they see beautifully over there.
Okay. I think we are coming gradually to that maybe bone of contention with you, Mr. Tagir. Now, from probably the preliminary analysis that have been made, can we categorically say for sure that the stance for an open, probably foreign policy by President Denis Sassou Nguesso is what has probably pushed France, France has lost the Sahel region. Even Cameroon and other countries, and Congo, Brazzaville is there, but then in a very open foreign policy stance on the president. Can we really say for sure that they have maybe weaponized this fight against radical youth in Congo? And probably, how can we change the narratives according to you?
You know, Clarisse, France hasn't changed his way of dealing in his colonies. And I think it has come a time, if someone, as we are talking, I say, if you ask me today, what is the best, give you 3 qualities of the best that you think that is going to come and help the country to get out from, to prosper and develop in Africa, I will say patriotism. You ask me the second quality, I will say patriotism. You ask the third quality, I will say patriotism. You see, the country is RS at the moment, and that's why you see like Mali going to the point of stopping some channels from France and all this, because they have understood, and not that only them have understood, many countries have understood. You see, in the case of Congo, Sassou Nguesso has stopped to be that, you know, perfect student of France. Now he has learned to say, no, that one, I don't think is going to go like this. They have been exploiting the petrol, just like in the case of Cameroon, good student in Cameroon. And from the moment you stand and start saying, the percentage you are giving me, I don't accept it. That's where the problem goes. Now, coming back to education and the medias, Claire, you see the problem. I've been, having the chance to pass in many television talking, but I've seen something, observed something. Yeah. That's why many invitations I don't care really to attend anymore. Because you'll see these youths, you are really talking for them, for their education. Oh, I saw you on the television. I saw you on the television. So what was I saying? No, I just saw you. It was beautiful. You talk very well and all. But he hasn't understood the message. You see, the point is, there is a lot to do, and we need to get down again, as I said, to the root. We are out from thousands of years of feudalism. Yeah. You know, where the African man had always someone in front going to be in connection with God. And if he says this, just do it. Just going to do it that way. And suddenly, again, as I said, from the Berlin conference, they came with something that they built on talking of democracy that I don't. Today, I'm convinced they don't even themselves know what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yes, because you see, that pastor coming on, God is not a democratic. God himself, he said that you're a pastor and you're talking of people, the number of people that are going to vote. You take this, you just like in Cameroon, you are the word they do, but again, they are put on opposition. A word that only comes from up. That means if the manpower says this, they are going to oppose. One thing is true. You see, one thing is true, Clarisse. From Berlin, one of the main objectives that has been clear and is going on is to keep us knocking our heads. Anytime, anywhere, that when there is an opportunity to keep us knocking our heads, you see in the case of Congo, that is political. It's mostly based on ethnics, No, it's not
absolutely,
really like,
yeah. It's some sort of something that is internal.
And it's not just like Cameroon and many others, when you talk of opposition, it's not like really you have an idea that people are going to come on, but people come from tribe and say, okay, fine, and they follow them. So we really need to get out of that. Their objective from Berlin is to build us to be opposed. You can't build a country when the people are not in harmony with those in power. Because you see the way even we talk, politicians, who are the politicians? We talk sometimes of politicians as if they are coming from another planet,
space, yeah.
Like Mars or the space or the moon and all this. Why they come out of us? And from the moment he gets out of us, he joins the system. He has to function according to the system. If not, he's out. So the way we have to deal in these issues is to fight and get a system that apply to our reality. Those who created democracy was not Europe. Well, it's not what they are doing. Greece, they created democracy. It was in Athens. And Athens did democracy according to its tradition, to its culture and all this. Just like you see Spain, they are doing democracy. But with democracy, the king is there. England, the same thing and all this. But when they come to our place, they want to teach us the way to go. While ourselves, we come out from that field and we need to understand these things deeply. If we don't understand, we are going to get stuck because their own issues from West is to get us divided, or let's say It was, because now I think that the opening is there with this multipolar world where we can create something that belongs to us. You see, we are fighting. Sometimes I stand. I look at how the state, when he's greeting maybe someone, and someone wants to get his favor, what do they do? He greets him like a king is greeting a small, well, just like to show I am still like looking at you as between you. If I am with you, my things are going to work. No, this is not democracy, because it's all about ideas. And I think that really, when we talk of education, we really need to get down. It's not even only the youth, because I've seen intellectuals, professors, who are prophesying tribalism, and they're backing tribalism. They're backing
such instances that do lead to this radicalism.
In these are people that should be an example to these youth, but they stop a professor, because a professor, when they are talking of a professor, this should be an example in the society where others have to find like a model, how to be useful to the country. So when we are talking of education, for me, as I said again, we need to cut first down from all these objectives that they got from Berlin, and the main one is division. I tried in Cameroon, from the part of the human right, to meet the Ministry of Interior, that we call the Minister of Territorial Administration in Cameroon. I'm still waiting. I hope I'm going to have an opportunity to meet him. But the main thing I want to meet him to say is that you can never, and I had the opportunity also in some plateau of television to really say, you will never emerge a country where the population is pointing the finger at the authority, and the authorities also are pointing their finger. You have two worlds. You have two worlds. We have to find a way, whatever it takes, find a way to walk hand in hand. That's from where we can emerge. You cannot have the youth standing and talking about authorities as if authorities came from another land and all the while they come from out. And once they get out of that, they join the system. Because they don't join the system, they are excluded from the system. That's how the system is built. They are out of the system. And mostly from the Francophone country, because you see that at least with the English, if you say Anglophone, let's say Anglophone countries in Africa, is a little bit different.
Absolutely.
You don't just like absorb, you need to do like I do. If not, you don't make it. That's the problem of Francophone countries. So really, I think this issue of Kululas or whatever, or Bébé in Congo, or you are in other countries like in Cameroon, they call it the micro coming up sometime. You see the case of Congo, Sassou Nguesso came up with the DGSA. They came out with a plan really to absorb that, at least for the moment, before looking at long-term solution. But because it's not a good showing sign of rebellion to France, France wants to use that. Mostly that the presidential elections are coming. I think it's March or
it's March,
they're coming in March to divide the country. We need to stop being students of that.
Absolutely.
We need to really that's why televisions like yours that are really like applied to our reality. I like to come and contribute. Because others, you need to follow the strength, and you are paid for that. You don't follow, your salary is not coming out. I joined the human rights, one of the NGOs. Why? Because Africa has understood that more and more, creating our own NGOs, giving our views from our reality.
Absolutely.
Rather than passing through their eyes, because we have been built to pass through their eyes. Can you imagine, Clarice? The first time I went to England, that was in 88. I went for a master's degree. And since that was a government arrangement in my country, I went there, and at the moment to have my subject topic to do my research on, since it was an government arrangement, they imposed me topic. No problem. At least if the subject was going to settle a problem in Cameroon, it would be interesting. So I told them, I'm not happy. I'm not going to do it. It almost became a diplomatic problem. They use your brain to do research, to serve the issues, and they put in the libraries there. That way people are going to come and see, and you get a PhD or whatever, and all. No, I don't work like that. And I said no. I said it went to the level of becoming a diplomatic problem, because I said I came here for my country before all.
So I'm not going to join a topic that does not serve the interests of my country. And that's how since Berlin, it's all been built. We need to get ourselves out of that the plan, which is to really get our head knock, and learn to work. The government has to work with the people. The people have to work. I take the case again of Cameroon, because at once it was like, the minister of the territorial administration frightened the population, sending treats. And I don't know, I was invited to another channel. I said, you can't do it. It can't work like that. These are your people. That's why you are there. That's why you are the Minister of Interior. That's how it's called normally. The Ministry of Interior is you face all the problem. What can we do? Find a way. If you say that, you have to find a way to settle. If not, forget about talking about emergence. You can't emerge. The country cannot emerge because these are the workers. Is that not so?
Absolutely.
These are the workers that are going to come out. So these youth, let me land here. These youths in Congo, this is the mighty force that can take Congo to another level. But they are now lost in, they're taking drugs. What
allowed themselves to be useful.
To be used politically in the wrong way, and the politicians.
Imagine massacring a pregnant woman. And then you ask, how will that push the government into giving you a job?
A job. Cutting the hands of the taxi driver and all this. This not just looking at it from
the government. Probably make radical changes.
Changes.
And are they beneficial to probably the youth?
The youth, in which way can it be beneficial? In no way it can be beneficial. But what again I said, listen. We had in the case of Cameroon, and I think you were the one inviting me on another television, when we had a problem that started in Ambazonia. And from the first year, that was 2016,
yeah.
I said, this is an asymmetric war. It can take 40 years. The first mistake was to allow it even to come. Now, recently, I met a friend of mine, a professor at the University of Boyas in Cameroon, and he told me, do you know where I am? What happened? Because he leaves Douala and go and give lessons at the university. And here are 3 people meeting him, hiding, putting things on their face, and they say, you have to give your participation for the fight, for the battle. These are thieves. And they say they are Ambazonians.
Realities of
from the moment you allow this kind of thing, it can take 40 years. It can take 50 years. Because now, in the case of many African, Central African countries, you see that many of these are thieves. I don't want to call any other country. They get in Congo, they join in, they are part of it, and all some don't even have the identity card they come from. So you allow everything. So we need to avoid getting into that situation. Absolutely. So the government has to find a way. What can we do to let you guys, the youth, what can we do together with these millions that you consider at the moment? Because we forget that now. If the DGSP that Sasengoso put on, and they tried fighting with all of we are seeing, killing them, all this, it's going to come back in Friday and worse.
Absolutely, looking for actually sustainable solutions to the Bebe Noir or Kuluna that is actually putting Congo's peace at the probably under siege, championed by media narratives. I will come back again to you, Dr. Dimanche. I think this program permits us to understand the stakes and see how probably we can bring solutions to the young people who have decided to get radicalized, and also ensure how we can provide possible, maybe the government can provide sustainable solutions to avoid such. But then given the fact that war remains a geopolitical tool, so how sustainable will this be? Still taking us back to the university should be Marian Galvi. There you actually questioned or probably had an interview with a focus group. And at one moment, I was surprised to note that you were talking to students who are probably pursuing their PhD. But then when you look at them at that particular moment and ask possible questions, you see that there is education without purpose. And these are some of the things that will probably lead us to a situation where we think that the government has not provided enough opportunities for us. Just to use that example to elaborate more on this aspect of rebellion, which can be addressed to ensure that peace doesn't actually erode from a country growing.
It is interesting because when I carried out interviews with students at a university, some of them doing PhDs.
Absolutely.
And I was baffled.
It was baffling.
That was a Mariam Gwabe in Congo.
Absolutely.
And I was baffled. And you see that in Congo even has a specificity where the level of higher education is not really up to date. You know, they have just Mariam Gwabe, and then they have David Sasson University. Those are just the two universities that they have. And these are young people who are supposed to benefit from the sponsorship of project and all of those. And when I interview these youth, PhD students, and people tell me that the first thing is that they are too disillusioned. Very, very disillusioned. There's no hope for them. Because according to them, the government is only made out of a presidential family, the government is this, the government is that. And then I ask myself, you cannot be doing a PhD and you have no other thing to do to propose to the government. You are waiting to finish your PhD, and then you come out to tell the government, I need a job. How does that happen? Already from their project, you should be able to be solving problems. You are a scientist. You should be solving problems. That's what I told them.
Bringing out solutions.
Bringing out solutions. You cannot be doing a PhD and you're waiting that the government should employ you. And now just come to the fact, of the appellations that we have. In Cameroon, we call them, fonctionnaire. People want to be fonctionnaire. Yeah, I mean, I just hate the Francophone appellation because in English, civil servant. In English, you see that you come out to serve. But in Francophone, the appellation, you give the impression that you come out to be on a high horse.
I like that one. I never saw that angle.
Exactly.
I never saw it. Fonctionnaire.
Yeah, fonctionnaire. Yeah, you just want
titre fonction.
You sit in your office and then somebody comes and take off your eyes and look. What do you want? This is what happens. You are now putting yourself at a level of authority and all other person at a level of solidarity. This is what is happening. And that is how our youth have been misled. This is an issue that we really need to solve. It is an issue in the whole Central Africa. I mean, Africa as a whole. That we need to be... How sustainable is this? It has never ever been sustainable, and I don't think that the next 100 years will ever be sustainable. That you just sit and then they want to just sit and expect the government to do things for them. It can never ever be, because the government depends on the youth. Even one of the things that they don't know is that the government depends on them. And one thing people don't know is that when you are poor, you spend more than a rich man, because a rich man goes and buys in bulk. You remain here. You buy in what they call retail, and you pay more. So the youth will continue to pay more if they don't join hands in making the country a better country. When you decide to join, and you see, one of the things I discovered in Congo too is just like in Cameroon, where you have a spillover of those youths. You have the Central Africans with the Seleka, all of those.
Yeah, the Seleka rebels.
Yeah. That is right. When we had the post-election violence in Cameroon, most of the people that were carried out from Biafra in Cameroon were people they were not Cameroonians. So you find that they are like now creating a synergy among themselves, a synergy of hooligans.
A fertile ground for such hooliganism.
So it gives the impression that this is the best thing to do when you harass people like the Bebenians they do, because they are specialized in harassing people.
Absolutely.
You harass people and then you take from what you didn't sow. And then the other day, there was a young guy, day before yesterday, who was killed in cold blood because he stole a bike. I mean, you see, look at the kind of acts that they commit, and then they don't look at the consequences. How sustainable is that kind of act that you live on stealing? It is not because in stealing, you need to constantly have the energy and the aura to steal. And in stealing, you need to take drugs and tramadol and all of those things to keep you courageous. For how long will you keep taking drugs to keep you courageous? This is the problem that the youth are having. And it can never be sustainable. Now you see. So the youth, those who are actually looking ahead and they have a clear variance of what their life is all about, the future is all about, they indulge in meaningful petty businesses, in meaningful agricultural work, in meaningful startups, in meaningful technology, and all of those. And at the final analysis, what happens is that when they see those ones that have been thriving, they tend to be jealous about them. And that's why when Mr. Pomgo was talking about the Anglophone crisis, it has now turned to a kind of a thievery, a kind of a banditry, or kind of when you see a youth prospering, that's when those...
And it should, the government
exactly.
actually...
This is actually what is happening. And you now see that it can never be sustainable. Now, what are you doing? When you do that, you create more war in the community. Because eventually, when the war will stop, that will be the beginning of another war. Because what I told people the other day is that they know those who have built houses in some villages during the crisis. And they are going to find out to know where you got money from, like those youth. Where did you get money from to invest? And that's now going to be another war that is starting. So it is not sustainable. The youth, they need to be able to know that education is important. Yes, no enabling environment, that is true. But we can make the environment enabling because we keep talking about the government. There is no magic one. The government is us.
It's us.
It's us. That is not what they fail to do. They think as if the government is some kind of an island where they have to work from there.
Let's welcome Dr. Andy. He's joining us from the United Kingdom. He's a geopolitics and strategic studies expert. You are welcome to the program this day. Dr. Andy, of course, we're talking about something that is similar to the case in Nigeria. According to reports, we noticed that Boko Haram came as a result of some sort of political rhetorics among politicians wanting to, have the baton of command in the country. And today, we are looking at the case of Congo, Brazzaville, a similar situation, the Kuluna, which is not just a frustration, but then it's like a tool that has been used to, or is being used to probably delegitimize the government in spite of the realities on the ground. And this is done through soft power, especially through narrative warfare. I would love to probably have your understanding of this and how the government at this particular moment can harness or probably put forth practical solutions that will not just eradicate the bébé noir, but ensure that it doesn't resurface given the existence still of the ninja armies that is coming from the Pole region and others.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I think that it will be really important to start with simplifying what the issue is based on my observation. I think that the conflict in the DRC as of January 2026 is
Congo, Brazzaville.
One that has
Congo,
Brazzaville, yeah. It is one that has assumed several dimensions already, and the problem keeps looking bigger than it appears when it actually started. Today, we now have sovereignty as a major challenge. We have over 120 armed groups, including the M23 and ADF, wanting to operate in the east and challenging the government control over its borders. You also have weak state presence, which suggests a lack of effective policing and judicial system in remote areas, and of course regional tension that persistently develops mistrust. And of course, you have resource exploitation. Much of this drama, I would call it drama or violence, is fueled by illegal mining, and and conflict for control of resources, which is taking a cue from what the last speaker was talking about, drawing inspiration from how young people, the youth, can basically reposition, recalibrate themselves to make themselves veritable tools in research, in entrepreneurship, in public and civil service, and so on and so forth. So these issues, if you want to look at it from a more broad-based perspective, you will see some kind of media polarization. You'll see some kind of security vacuum. You would also notice some elements of ethnic tension and economic inequality playing very critical roles, playing very very loud roles on these difficulties, these challenges. And then you also see information warfare. The spread of digital misinformation makes it difficult for citizens to distinguish between official government policy and propaganda, and which is where we actually have one of the greatest challenge in Africa, where we have our major news sources completely hijacked, or rather depending on foreign sources for validation. And I think that that is a major source of the breakdown in terms of information management within government and out there among non-government groups. So if you look at what is going on currently, you would realize that we have a plurality of actors. The government is just one of them. You have non-government groups, you have civil society groups, all of them re-echoing the primary need for a unification of interest to see that all sides have been able to put on the table in a manner that can distinguish between those who want peace and those who do not want peace, or if there is need for peace in the first place. Because, I mean, you want to be, in one of your submissions, Clarice, you said a bad peace is better than a good war. So what is the basis for peacemaking? What is at risk if we decide to toe the line of peace? What actors are pro-peacemaking, and why are the others not finding possible opportunities to explore peace in terms of resolution of the conflict? Now, when we look at it from this angle, you can begin to identify why economic concerns are very key to the center of the discourse. You will begin to realize how regional tension is used as a tool for manipulation and penetration. You will see institutions are weakened and made dependent in a bid to keep them under control and effectively tamed for usage. It leaves a question of sovereignty. The people who are governed, how well are they governed? The armed groups and the militia groups that have pluralized is a consequence of failure of leadership. So relating that to the Boko Haram issues in Nigeria, we have often said that leadership wrongly served is necessarily going to consume everybody. It just takes a matter of time. If it doesn't hit you directly, it may be coming to your closest allies. It may be coming to your domestic staffs. It may be coming to your kinsman, your brother, your sister, your cousins, your nephews. Everybody becomes a target. So this is systemic. Let's not treat it as something that is completely independent, standing on its own. It is systemic. It is well supervised. It is well monitored and funded, and should be treated as such. So I'd like to rest my case for now until more reactions call for further opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Let me stay with you, Dr. Andy. you quite highlighted that the radicalism will always come as a result of leadership lapses. But then this case we are looking at, according to research, I don't know if you got that from Dr. Dimancho, who said that a politician whom he did not actually identify actually revealed the realities from a geopolitical perspective. We have noticed that rebellions are not always necessarily as a result of resistance to governance lapses, but then it also a toll in diplomacy that countries do use to attain objectives. So from what you have said and from the realities on the ground in Congo, Brazzaville, we have seen the weaponization of media narratives to maybe change a mindset that will not appreciate the realities of the country. To note that according to on the ground information, President Denis Sassou Nguesso in the country, this was according to from the answers we got on the ground while on the expert research in the country, is the leader that has been praised for ensuring peace. And it is visible for DR Congo to be going through a war for the past 30 years. And a neighboring country like Congo, Brazzaville is not facing a similar situation. That is already an answer on its own. So let's try to understand, probably not giving weight to why there's a rise in rebellion, but trying to see how we can, re-educate young people towards, what we can call selective exposure and perception of the realities of that country in comparison with their defined El Dorado, which is usually elsewhere.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing I also spotted was that that there are accusations from some African media sources and commentators that France and Western media outlets, subtly influence coverage of the Congo crisis to maintain and influence French interest. So in that sense, rather than weaponizing state media against the DRC government, I think the primary issue highlighted by Human Rights and Press Freedom Organization is the DRC government's own severe crackdown on press freedom and attempts to control the narratives. I think that the question of framing the narrative is quite important. Even though some sources suggest that Western media, including French outlets, use episodic framing, that is covering the crisis only during spikes in violence and oversimplifying the conflict internal. Which has the danger of ignoring the role of external actors and potentially aligning with certain political interests. You see, when you expose your society to that kind of system, first of all, it looks like you have lost the battle, because why is the validation coming from external body? Why is the people not enlightened enough to understand better what goes on in their society and have to wait rather for some kind of international narrative before they can actually understand or validate what is going on within their society? So we need to correct the narratives. Let our people know. But you see, I always accuse politicians that the people know for real what the issues are, but they would not risk trusting the political class, because oftentimes the decision to trust has been too expensive. So expensive that it oftentimes ends badly to trust the political class. So you see, you don't blame the people wanting to find trust elsewhere. All right. But in this particular case, I think that there is need to improve community engagement, to see how the people are drawn closer and made to understand the real issues, different from what is flying in several foreign news channels. And then there is also the issue of terminology. specific terminologies are deployed, such as consistently referring to the M23 as Rwanda-backed M23. And this has been described by some commentators as a way of Western media to implicitly support the DRC government's claim that Rwanda is entirely to blame. So, I don't want to get into excessive politicization of the issues. I just want to stay on the fact that there is so much that can be achieved if the people are actually engaged. Engaging the people gives the people the opportunity to find traction with what is going on and see themselves as useful tools, as important personalities in driving the process, beginning from their immediate locus.
Mhm.
If you can't do it so far beyond your locus, you can actually start there. You can actually engage your friends, your community, and see that peace is a collective resort, and there's no better alternative than peacemaking. No matter how little a conflict is, if you undermine peace, it can become complicated. It can engulf the whole community and, by extension, even the neighboring community. Because in diplomacy, in international relations, we used to say that a man cannot go to sleep if his neighbor's house is on fire. So all hands need to be on deck, and we have to give up oversimplifying these issues, because when we do, we would put ourselves in a situation where we constantly look up to foreign powers, foreign civilization to tell us how to deal with African specific problems. And this isn't helping.
Absolutely, it's about solving African problems and providing African solutions. Mr. Tagier, I want to probably also comment to what Dr. Andy just said. I would love us to make some sort of analysis on terminologies as far as this is concerned. We in our preamble, we highlighted a revolution and a rebellion. We highlighted radicalism, criminality, frustration, and we also highlighted repression and probably restoring order. And when we are looking at the case of the Congo Republic, just to highlight with Dr. Andy, that our focal point is the Congo Republic with its capital city, Brazzaville. And this is the city that saw the polarization of this bébé noir. We saw the murder of a pregnant woman. And these are some of the acts that actually led the government of Denis Sassou Nguesso to take on the radical stance, not actually oppressing people, revandicating, but ensuring that the extinct gang groups. We saw that in Haiti, and Kenya even sent troops. So let's try to, understand the key terms so that while probably talking about the state's approach or tactics towards solving security problems, we will understand the gravity of the situation.
Good. Thank you, Clarice. I think the issue of this terminology is very important. And for me, maybe to put my little knowledge about the issue, I'll go to the Gilets jaunes, what we saw in France. The Gilets jaunes, many don't know, this was an organized, revolution that happened in France. And they had concrete results. It was not an issue, because that M23 is really becoming a problem in Africa, because when you look at it and how now the media also are extended, trying to put two countries, the first country,
loggerhead,
the Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. But see, this was an organized, and I can give one of the achievements that they did in France, very organized. That was actually started by an African origin lady. I just forget the name now. But you see, the Gilets jaunes, they stood primarily to fight so that the authorities, French authorities, should get closer to the population. Because France has remained an elitist kind of, government for years and years and years and years. And they achieved that. They achieved that because you take the ENA de Paris, that was École Nationale d'Administration de Paris,
was transferred to Lyon. So it was really delocalized and transported to Lyon as an achievement to bring training of the French people that go there, coming back for the administrative officer and all this, to really get closer to the population. That was achieved, and the government also got that part of the issue. The problem in our place is that we can have those kind of issues, but the problem with the intervention from outside, and they intervene like the French media, for example, intervene because they don't really want to see that peace that we want to have. It hasn't been pleasing France to see Congo and Sassou Nguesso bring. I'm not saying as the best president. It's very far from that.
When it comes to issues of security and sovereignty, we need to actually
really
focus.
stand and give him, he has been succeeding in that. So really, we need to be careful, and we need to get our issues by ourselves, like my co-panelist was just explaining, and stop turning our heads towards that they don't understand themselves. The best example may be the IS, for example. Taking the issues that French have been fighting for so long, because they used to say it's muscles and weapons and all. No, it's not the issue. The man issue is first the heart. To understand the heart of people, to understand the habits of the people, to understand the tradition, to understand them first and move. But they can't. It's not that they didn't. They cannot actually. That's the way I put this issue, because when you look at the Western, when they came and colonized, for them originally it was to bring us to modern life and all this. And as they say is that the woman can only give the best that she has, what she has as the best. She cannot give more than that. So as they came, they thought the way it was sufficient for the Frenchman, for example, to teach France, to teach the history of France, to teach the geography. That's what they had in hand. They did not have our history. They did not have the realities that they had. It is to us now to get down. That's why I still come back and say, from the moment the authorities in place, they don't understand that they have to work in harmony with the population, because for a long time, for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, we have been in this feudal. But at least we knew that, just setting a problem that for me disturbed me, Clarice, that this colonialism has put there, and it's an issue. The woman, you have 60% of women at the age of marriage, for example, that they left who are not married. You talk of polygamy or monogamy. All the ladies, they want to fall in love, and all the other year, what they came and educate them with. But the reality is that before they came, you wouldn't see a woman more than 25 who's not somewhere in the house. What doesn't have on this
resetting societal values.
The values of the society. And resetting that means authorities have to work hand in hand with the population, not waiting for France. Not waiting from Great Britain, not waiting for America. Thank God the unipolar system is just falling. It should collapse, because it is collapsing, and that's a reality. And now with the multipolar, everyone has to look at his own way, to look at the sun, to go forward and bring things. We've got to do that. I'm talking of pulling down all kind of professor that went and learned the history of these foreign powers and all, and get our own. Sometimes I say we should start having PhD students studying what was behind this kind of fury in what an Etophis achieved, in what a Miller achieved, in what the president of Liberia, that was
George Weah,
an example like that, to start and get his PhD. Get his PhD. We Africa achieved this, succeeded to have this man because of this. Going from when he was born, getting a PhD under this, we need to get back to our realities and really get it from there. This is really the real education. Not education that we grab things that we don't understand, and we come with the title, as Doc was just saying, because thinking of, I just study all that because obviously the next day they are all on motorcycles. Because you cannot have hundreds of thousands of offices where people are going to come and sit. You need to produce. That's why also another thing that I've seen that we haven't understood, you're talking of getting out of the CFA. It's good. To do what? We need to produce. We need to put our feet and know that you don't, because mostly in the French speaking, the Francophone Africa, is that the mentality is that there's a cake somewhere. I need to get to that level so that I can eat also my own part of the cake. Which cake? You build the cake. There's no cake nowhere. There's no cake nowhere. You put yourself, you be part of the production, and therefore you can eat the cake. Not that you come and there's a cake sitting somewhere where they go. I just see a collapse coming. I see something. You see, in the case of Cameroon, for example, let me say, the civil servant already, for the money to pay them is becoming rare. They have to go to the treasury to say what was meant for the roots, for the men to pay them. For me, it's just going to get worse. If you don't get down to production, what do we produce? What can we put out? Not having political parties that come and they join these foreign powers to politicize everything, to bring the media to oppose the population to the authority. We need to work hand in hand. And if not for me, what we are calling the Kuluna is just the beginning. It's going to get worse. Because these guys and the population grow. We are very happy. We are doubling the population. Africa is growing. But what do these guys do?
The value that actually presents of course. And I think even Rwandan Paul Kagame once said this, that the African youths are actually very important in the transformation of the continent. And he asked a very pertinent question: how ready are the youths? Are you ready to take charge of the opportunities when they come? And this is a question for another day. And of course, we continue on what is making us here today with you, Dr. Timancho. Mr. Tagia just mentioned the CFA franc, and then we want to look at the extent to which maybe structural constraints. We know that Congo Brazzaville uses the CFA franc, and also which is tied to France, and its dependence on loans and probably its oil revenue. We mentioned that earlier on, that is not totally controlled by the government. And of course, how can we maybe look for a way out so as to ensure that the country can be in full control of this, that will eventually solve some of the problems which are coming as a result of the limitations of leadership as per se, and hopefully this can build a society that will not breed radicalism, but ensure a society that is orderly and focused on probably production and transformation.
Clarice, I've often gotten some kind of different views about people. It is true that they say you can't really develop with somebody's own currency, but I have a problem with that.
Okay,
we are not really yet at the problem of the currency. When we look at the way we are, that we produce what we do not consume. Mm-hmm. That poses a problem already. You produce what another person puts the price tag on. You produce coffee. You produce cocoa. Somebody else put the price on it. We do not even have small, petty industries where we can be able to, to process the things that we produce. We even the issue of globalization. Sometimes I still have a problem in Africa talking about globalization. Because the global stage is about you bringing what you have to eat. This is it.
This is the drug in another way.
This is the thing.
What are you bringing?
What are you bringing to the table? Because when I think about African regional global stage, I step back and say, hey, what are we talking about? What is Africa bringing to the stage? And it is a big problem.
It starts with narrative change.
Well, narrative change is because the Africans, they have refused to be industrious. We are still at the level of consumption. We just want to consume what other people produce. The cake. This one finished goods.
The cake.
Finished goods. So what is it about? Even if we have our own currency in Cameroon or in Congo, of what use is that if we are not ready to compete in terms of what we produce? It doesn't make any sense.
Doc, I will not come to you. But Clarice, you permit me to say this. When I went to the university, I went to the university in the 80s. We were having a scholarship paid, 15,000 when I went the first year. The second year, a revolution. Now that money is small. The government will march for that. You have to increase, and they increase the scholarship to 25. So we're receiving money. Mm-hmm. Gradually this has gone, and today you have to pay. The students have to pay. And there's less employment. There's less money. It's just going to get worse if you don't understand this thing. Because that's what we built on. When the Frenchman came and there's going to be a cake. Which cake is there? You need to produce. You just like Doc is saying, you cannot put on, pineapples and all this. You export everything. When it multiply by 5, 6, you come back and say, you're drinking.
So, do you know that even the banana we eat here is in 5th or 4th or 5th grade that we eat here? The first grade is being exported.
Yes. No, you are talking about if you stop again. We are going to say many things around us.
Absolutely. Of course, yeah.
I knew a wonderful lady in Cameroon, Madame Fonny. She's of late memory now.
Yeah.
She came from one of journeys from Libya. Gaddafi was still alive. She learned everything. Me, I'm an agronomist by origin, training. And she gave me a product. Libya needs bananas. Our bananas. I never knew. Many never knew that the first consumer for bananas was Maghreb.
Exactly.
It was not France.
It's
when I started doing the project that I remember the minister at that time, Perevet, told me, many people don't know, but France is not the first. It's Maghreb which is the first. We worked on the project for almost 2 years. Libyans are waiting. They have the money ready to sponsor. But because we don't have that mentality, I will not know if the project just got stopped because I was from one ethnic that the man that had to sign to let it on while others were waiting, or because maybe the French didn't want to see the banana now going straight to Libya without passing through. But I learned by saying this is a battle, my brother.
Yeah.
It's normal, it's a battle. Someone who has been exploiting your petrol and also be exploiting left and right. Don't think then from day to the next night, you are just going to come and stand and say, and because you are shouting, you are making noise, human rights and all this. No. This is battle. This is battle. And I think the IS, I still say again, it's a good example.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think you just corroborated what I'm saying. So I think that the issue of currency, of course, is good. We try to have our own currency. We try to be able to bargain with our own currency. But at the end of it all, you have a currency and you do not have anything to give out.
So that currency backwards.
The currency does not back anything. So this is what we have been saying, that the youth in Africa in particular, rather than keeping on shouting, oh, we have taken over the country, now it's the world of the youth, and so what? The world of the youth in what?
I cannot pass a concours.
Yes, the world of the youth in drunkenness, the world of the youth in alcohol,
opening bar.
in opening bars. That is not what we want. The world of the youth should be in agriculture, mechanization. The world of the youth should be in industrialization. The world of the youth should be in transformation, technology. This is the world of the youth. We need to build a data. Even the military data, we need to build it.
And this will ensure that they can no longer be used as political tools like what we are seeing in Congo, Brazzaville. We can talk about the pastor Ntumi, and of course a pastor with about 2,000 troops, and we see how this is affecting mindset in Congo, Brazzaville, and probably leading to this radicalization that is coming to you, Dr. Andy, looking at how probably a recommendation, Congo Brazzaville is heading to the polls for the presidential elections in March 2026. So what do you think should be that that project or the mantra of politicians, vying for this position to be able to solve this problem, which you said is a systemic problem, has to be tackled strategically and with care to maybe prevent further polarization?
Okay, thank you so much. Before I get on to that task, I want to differ a little bit, just slightly, with the last speakers. Nothing is wrong if the youth are making demand for affirmative action, allowing greater access for public service engagement. That is absolutely fine, because in Nigeria and most of the other African countries, the leaders we had in the 80s were leading in their late 20s and early 30s. And this has remained the time when the best example of leadership was ever demonstrated in Africa. So that were the group of university students that African societies were producing firsthand. They came on board and had classical example to put out there on the table before things went wrong. Away from that, so allowing youths the opportunity to come on board is part of the recruitment process that can produce a new breed of leaders who understand the history where we're coming from, and then tie it to contemporary challenges and probably work out a way forward with all the tech skills, the AI, the automation, and every knowledge you can find currently into this world. So back to the question, I feel that by way of parting shots, it will do a lot of good strengthening the Luanda and Nairobi peace processes to ensure neighbors respect each other over territorial integrity, and then prioritizing training and payments of DRC National Army to reduce their reliance on local militias. There's also the need for implementing strict international blockchains tracking for mineral to ensure that they are sourced ethically and not used to fund rebels. I mean, that is also going to lead to traceability of minerals. And then in protection of press freedom, what I think can be done is to ensure that both local and international journalists can report safely to provide an objective view of situations, thereby reducing instances of fake news or unverified news from bad sources. And then there's need for creating a robust program to help former rebel fighters surrender and return to civilian life with job training and safety. If you put these items, this is my little list is not exhaustive. I just identified about 4 or 5 of them. You can create community engagement platforms and public enlightenment programs, national orientation programs. It's a gradual thing, but as long as trust is eroded, there is no program that the African people are going to open their arms and accept, whether it is in DRC or Congo Brazzaville or in Nigeria or Togo, anywhere in Africa. There is a newness of mindset that is making young people and the communities at large to insist on the right thing. Oftentimes, I mean, like what we're seeing in Uganda, it is already getting messy. But the records will be there. The internet has been shut down as we speak. But the records will be there that there were voices that disagreed with you at a time when this was happening. Instead of having those bad records, why don't we chart a course in the spirit of fairness and equity? Why don't we chart a course that allow Africans to have a treat that at least allow them to have a feel of the citizenship that they supposedly have and pay taxes to government to guarantee? So I'll leave with that puzzle. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Of course, the stakes are usually high during elections period, and I actually engaged also Uganda, which you just mentioned, with Ugandans as they were preparing for these elections, and according to some sort of how will I put it? So maybe research or rating, Ugandans we actually in favor of the incumbent. This is just the reality coming from Ugandans from a youth, of course, which we talked to in the run-up to the elections. And this again brings us to understanding something, Dr. Tibancho. Let's try to understand these media narratives and probably how it can still lead to such a radicalism and putting us again on the question of peace, still with Congo as our Congo Brazzaville as our focus, and with the case study of the ninja rebels and probably and play in undermining the peace in the country. Please, Dr. Andy, I will appreciate if you mute your mic. Thank you.
So you see, there is this issue of the human rights. Of course, Mr. Fomiko, we talk
Absolutely.
because most often you see when a rebel leader dies, they talk about human rights. When a rebel leader kills, because we want to support the narrative, we do not talk about it.
Absolutely.
It is a very, and the international media are very good at that. In all, they project things. You see, it is something that we Africans need to rise above, There is a difference between radicalism and revolution. We want to, yes, let the youth in Africa want the revolution to change things. Because revolution looks much more positive than radicalism. Because when you are radical, it means that you just want to destroy. You want to annihilate.
Like the pregnant woman that was killed in Congo Brazzaville. What was the end?
Dr. Andy also understand that he is talking more of radicalism. We are talking about revolution, where we want Africans to be able to rise up above their morals, above their difficulties, above their problems, and solve the problem themselves. Revolutionize the system in a positive way, their mindset and all of those. That is what we are talking about, revolution and not radicalism. Nobody will hate that African youth should rise up. But when this rising up is actually putting down the country, it is not rising up. You cannot buy the hand that feeds you. All of us belong to the country. And if you spend all your time in putting down that country, it means that there is something actually wrong. We appreciate the youth who have stood up high and they are able to, to project the image of their countries and in Africa. We praise them. But when you have youth who perpetually goes again and go into partnership with international organizations, go into unholy partnership
Take money.
They take money. This is what it's all about. They take euros and they take dollars, and then they come back now. They feel that they are and they want to now cause that havoc. They bring in now that criminality, that radicalization with other youth in order to put down the country for the selfish reasons of those who bribe them. It is wrong. This is what we are talking about. No matter how the government is, I think that we can still settle our issues. There's no perfect government in the world. We were thinking about America. Where is America today?
Absolutely.
Let people think. Let people think.
They say that they are the example. Where is the example?
Now, each country is now left to fix its own country. All the youth of each country and the leaders have left to fix their own country. There is no international standard any longer. No international standard. We know what is good for us. Let us fix our country. You cannot go and get into partnership and come to destroy your country. And you say you want a democracy that is like that. Mr. Fomiko talk about democracy as was formulated in Greece. It's not even how it is practiced. Even the Greeks themselves are baffled. They are baffled about
They don't know where they stand themselves.
This is the problem. So we need to set
Which
our
one?
own standard. We need to set our own standard. We know the historical background of each and our country, and we need to start from there. We need to build our countries from there. A monarchy, yes. And so what?
So what?
A monarchy, yes. And so what?
Of course, we're looking for.
I usually talk about permanent peace and stability that people have. It is not just changing a leader for its change's sake. Not that I don't want the change of leaders. I want it. But you don't just have to change a leader for the change's sake. That people will come and bribe you, come and corrupt you to change
the slogan in Cameroon, just to interject a bit, that was somehow complex and controversial, saying it should be anybody, but then we don't want to see this this face. And then you think about the country's security, the country's sovereignty, the hidden state.
You just want to change what is working to what is and put what is not working. Is it what we want? Is it what we want? This is the problem. Now we get the international people, they come and crumble. Look at Libya, 2011, in dictatorship, and Libya after 2011.
After 1 million dead. As we said.
Actually, Libya after 2011 in democracy. Yeah, because that's what we're calling now. The dictator.
But that's not the point of my life.
Look at Libya today. We need to be careful in Africa. These people who come and pretend that they want to teach us democracy, how we have to live it. They only help us to kill ourselves or nothing.
Oppose our heads.
That is the thing. We need to concentrate on what saves. You know, usually I usually tell people what saves lives is good. What saves lives is good. You don't come and then you create war, like what the Kulunas and the base, you know, all of that.
Yeah,
People
Boko
die,
Haram.
and then the end of it, you say, yeah, we have succeeded. This democracy. Before long, you find that the country has gone down the drain. This is what we have. We need to have foresight. We need to have people who study ahead and can be able to tell us exactly that this is what is. And the youth of this continent called Africa, they need to rise up. And that is the revolution I'm talking about. The mental revolution, philosophical revolution, technological revolution, agricultural revolution, military revolution. You saw the way Trump uprooted Maduro
From Venezuela.
There
Kidnapped. That's the
is
key
a
word, yeah.
narrative of how that was done. He was not now by gun, by physical gun. There is a military.
A conspiracy, absolutely.
Then they came, there was something like a chemical that auto just put them down and everybody was like just dead. Nobody could shake. It was not like total that you just say. That total only came afterward. So this is the technological military revolution and I don't know, digital revolution and all that we need in Africa. If you have a dictator who is able to give you what you want, what is the problem? Our brother Dr. Andy talks about Uganda. Uganda is being ruled by a military leader.
And he's doing a great job.
And he's doing a great job. And that is the envy of almost all Africans to get to Rwanda. So where is the problem? Let us go for what works. It is not because they have told us over there that we are dictators. We are not in a democracy. We are not in this. Then we just foolish ourselves. We know our realities and how to live at that.
The stakes are really high for Africa, particularly for Congo, that is on the spotlight. And we see that the quest, of course, to be at the helm or probably taking the baton of command will always lead to, some probably, let's say, figure politicians weaponizing elections itself and using the vulnerability of young people. So this is, maybe a recommendation of Mr. Tagier. Elections are coming in March. In probably 2026 in Congo, Brazzaville. People, of course, will present the manifestos. And of course, how can we maybe advise the young people to probably their behavior towards these electoral processes in line with the realities of their country?
Right. Clarice, I started by saying, if you ask me for 3 qualities,
yeah,
whoever wants to be a leader, I'm not talking about being educated or whatever.
Sure.
I'm not saying that one of the Christian is to be educated, to be PhD, to be all this. I said patriotism.
Yeah.
I said second one, patriotism. And I said again, third one, patriotism. I would say where I went really personally, I had a disappointment and I've been seeing that on with the Christian body. Let me tell you this. I am invited in a setting of a leading network of pastors in a country. In my country, why not say in Cameroon? I'm invited there, and after all, blah, 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 all the we say, okay, we are going to do the final, the prayers of the end. Just to tell you where radicalism can take people, can take to the level of the church. And you see the main wars that have all over seen the history of man came from religion and all this. So I'm forgetting about Pastor Tumi and all what he's doing on the same angle. And I say, okay, people are asked to give the topic of prayers. What should we pray for? We have some 3 or 4 topics. And I say, let us pray for President Biya. I'm from Cameroon. So in Cameroon, the president is sick.
Yeah.
And I can tell you straightforward, the leader who invited all, said that prayer is going to be very hard. My brother, listen. Like the constitution is the Bible, the legal Bible. If people don't respect the constitution, just like you from the religious background, you don't respect the Bible that you have in hands, you are going to lead people to this radicalism, where you are also lost. The Bible clearly tells you to pray for the authorities in powers. The Bible clearly tells you that God is the one setting people in power and removing them. At every level, if you want to work to get a revolution somewhere, not radical, because radicalism is going to always bring people to knock heads. And you have foreign powers through this media and all this who are going to take that advantage to come in, put some arrows that is, or promise you a house in Paris or in London and all this, and get all what you put on off. The same person that was standing
for this topic, as we had it also in Cameroon, Amazonians and all this. So I support that again. We stand for revolution, counting on our realities and what we have in hands. Knowing that the real enemy is the predator coming from, and because he has been doing it after 400 years of slavery, he came now with 100 other years for colonization. There is no love out there. When we began today, we are talking of interest. There is a game of interest. That is a reality. And now we need to understand, for example, America. Don't sit down and shout, Trump is doing it. Prepare yourself to face that and get your best from it. Because it's normal. America has been living a standard of living that all of us we have been paying. Having the dollar far up and all this. This has been his way. Now, it's not easy for a human being to leave that standard and get down. It's going to do everything. That's why the world is really at the edge maybe of collapse if you're not careful. Because someone like Trump can just go and press that nuclear bomb and all this. The world at the moment is that risk at the moment, because for a giant like that one to collapse, when he sees that all these values that I was counting on you after the dollar, after the gold, you went on the petrol dollar, and now the petrol, you cannot master it anymore, and
Absolutely.
all this. So anything can happen. Now we, Africa, for me, I see that as a wonderful window where we can start. This has nothing to do with money or your riches or only. It's a mentality.
Absolutely.
And that mentality means those in power understand that the people are at the base of the power. This youth is such for that the base in China. China will do that. With more than 1 billion of people, nobody sit down doing nothing. These guys, they do everything. They do everything. You can accuse China now or whatever, but these guys, they try to produce something. Do something somewhere. Do something. We sit down. We dream. We complain. We see France has done that. England has done. France, they are doing what they have been doing for 500 years. Now, you want to get out of it. What do you propose as a solution to get it in? It's not that you get on if a vision, people start following you, and you find, where can I get some money? You get an NGO in the States. You get the government in the These guys are going to come just like that empty thing that you call the United States, the African Union. It's going to function the same way, because you cannot be putting your money and someone goes and do what he wants. It's not possible. We get to count on what we have. We change the mentality. Again, as I say, maybe we never have anything perfect, but maybe a good example that we have before our own eye, the IS. These two countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, is never going to be easy. They have enemies all over, but they are on the good track.
Focus, the trajectory, is
that they're on a good track. Because they just think it's easy, because we build the mentality of a cake somewhere that you just come and eat. And it's not going to be easy. You need to get either down and think. Start thinking, how can I transform this sugar cane? How can I transform that pineapple? How can I this mango that we have a decision that we come, and after we just throw them in there because we don't know how to transform them. What can I do to transform them? And you have so much genius in Africa. You have much genius. I was surprised to actually one of the best mathematicians in the world now is a Cameroonian. Yeah. The second best is a Cameroonian. By the way, it's a Cameroonian. And you have many genius on that way that show the hand. You have the daughter of Tone who is also at the USA, whatever it is. NASA and all this. We have genius who can produce. What can you do to transform what we have? Not what they tell us that we have. Now, this petrol that we talk of and all this talk of petrol, we are not exporting our petrol. You see, Dangote, Nigeria, the first one to produce who had the raffinery of that dimension and all this, he faced battles. It wasn't easy for him. And even up to now, employment opportunities that came, Nigerians are not profiting. The Indians who came, the young Indians came and did it because it doesn't have the labor. You didn't find the labor there. So what can you do? How can you go and start not thinking of offices, civil service? So I advise the youth of Congo, guys, your enemies are not these authorities. Try to see how you can work hand in hand give them proposals so that they get you out, because they
Absolutely.
inherited
Shared
of a colonial
responsibility.
system where they are also locked in. They are prisoners of that system. How can you help them to get out of that system? You talk about the man of Rwanda, Kagame. He said a sentence that I like, that I will never forget. He said, anyone that comes and give you any idea of division, know that they will be worse. Get together. When you are together, you do something. Don't always look at how to get everything easy in mountain. The next day, it might be slow, small, but what comes from you, not what comes from them.
Intentionality and shared responsibilities. Dr. Andy probably will culminate this for us. Now we are looking at the shared responsibility of the government of Congo, Brazzaville, and even youth leaders, civil society in shaping narratives that will not lead the country into some civil disobedience as they prepare for elections come March 2026.
Let me speak to the young people of Congo. I want to encourage you to understand that a country that is destroyed is first of all going to deny you the privileges you enjoy as a citizen. If you are not proud of where you are now, you can only get better. And getting better is mobilizing yourselves with devising means and avenues to put yourself together in small clusters to see what you can do to be better versions of yourself as an individual first, as a member of your little classes, business groups, as a member of the community, a member of the organization where you are. Beginning from that point, you learn leadership, you learn conflict management, you learn problem solving, and how to leverage on human resources. So the government, I want to encourage you to prioritize the need of the people. I am an advocate of citizen-centered foreign policy. Foreign policy that mirrors the real need of the local people and how you are able to deploy all relevant tools, materials, resources towards the advancement of these problems in a manner that brings solution. Let us join hands together to build trust, the kind of trust that can allow the people to have faith in government, to believe when the government says, we are out to achieve this from the next 10 years. I have been in the civil society for years, and I understand what it is when you go to the interior part of African society. I understand the pains that groans on the inside of the average African person who is unable to put 2 square meals on the table. I understand the pains of a mother who looks at their child exhibiting polyganism and gangsterism when they truly wish that they have a truly model upbringing for that child. I understand the frustration on the face of a father who looks at his daughter who is roaming the street with an unwanted pregnancy. These are real challenges. These are real situations. These are real issues. Taking us to bed as we go to bed and bringing us back from bed as we wake up. I want these issues, in as much as I want these issues to be adequately managed and resolved, I want us to, for the first time, see ourselves as partners in progress. I want us to have a new sense of understanding and cooperation that sees government not as the evil that has been brought to plague the community, the society, the nation, but as men, imperfect men and women who have only come to see how far they can go in moving the nation forward. If we see them as men and women who have their own interests, maybe we might begin to see how to think of solutions that we can share out there instead of thinking of ways to destroy already built public infrastructure.
If we see them as imperfect humans, maybe we can become productive in our own way to begin to solve little problems where we are. And after a while, those problems our model of problem solving might be adopted even on the international or national scale. So we remember how Mansour was, or rather, let me not go too far. Let me stay around the African continent. Somebody mentioned Dangote and the kind of challenges that they face. These are even big industrialists. Look around you, you'll find people who you can actually tag along, people who inspire you to do the right thing, people who motivate you to become better versions of yourself. These are people to associate with. These are people to get close to. Not radicals, not people who are going to introduce young African people to armed struggle, because the exposure to armed struggle is going to leave you in a situation where even when you get ready to stop, when you feel you've made enough money, oh, I just wanted $1,000. Now I have $1,000, I want to stop. But you are unaware, by reason of the kind of contract you have gotten yourself into, if there would ever be what if there is no opportunity to stop? So I encourage us, brothers, sisters, and friends, this is election coming up. Let us take advantage, get registered, get your permanent voter registration done, do what you have to do. If there's a better candidate, use the lawful means available according to the constitution of the land to do your convocation, to express yourself within the ambit of law, and gradually, maybe, you might begin to get it right if you begin to talk to government in the language they understand, in a much more civil manner, rather than wanting to tear down public interest. I thank you all, and I wish you all best of luck from the next election session.
Indeed, in a civil manner, and this is where, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to draw the curtains into today's edition of the program, which focused on the Operation Zero Kuluna that Western media weaponized. But then I think during this program, we had the opportunity to, bring a contrary analysis that will not incite, but then will widen the horizon of Congolese as they all prepare to go to the polls. Come March 2026, it's of course a shared responsibility to be able to term radicalism. It's a shared responsibility from the government, civil society, the parents, and other stakeholders that are vital in ensuring that there is sustainable peace that would therefore open the country for foreign direct investment, and of course paint a positive diplomatic image for the country, which is vital in the scope of geopolitics, and also on the part of the government, if I should borrow the words of Mr. Tagier, to ensure that politicians vying for the presidency should be more patriotic, and their manifestos should be embedded in this philosophy of patriotism, which will be seen in people-to-people diplomacy, as the African continent and Congo, Brazzaville in particular, tries to reshape its own narratives at this particular juncture. Controlling the narrative will help to reshape the mindset. And of course, we are going to produce or provide practical and contextual solutions to the problems facing our respective nations. Thank you so much. So we want to draw the curtains into this edition of Global Insight, brought to you by Globus, while wishing you a lovely moment in the company of programs on Pan-African Media TV. Bye-bye.